Hello there, and welcome back to Quiet Vitality. I'm so glad you've chosen to spend this time here, resting and learning. Before we begin our journey together, I'd like to gently ask if you're comfortable sharing just with yourself in this moment. Where are you listening from? And what time is it there? Is it the soft, gray light of early morning? Or the deep, settled blue of evening? Wherever you are, and whatever the hour, I invite you to just notice it, and then let it go. Settle in, and let your focus turn gently inward. Tonight, we'll be embarking on a quiet story. It's the story of you. Specifically, the quiet, miraculous, and perpetual story of how your body manages its most precious resource: energy. We won't be rushing. We'll move slowly, thought by thought, system by system, tracing the gentle rhythms that power your every moment, from a single heartbeat to a day-long journey. So let your mind relax. Let your breathing find its own slow and steady pace. And let's begin at the most natural beginning, the first subtle shift from sleep into wakefulness. Imagine, if you will, a deep and quiet night. Your body has been immersed in its most restorative state, a world away from the active demands of the day. In these hours, your cells have been busy with repair, your mind has been sorting and storing memories, and your energy reserves, in their own way, have been quietly replenishing. But as the earth turns and the first suggestion of light begins to touch the horizon, something shifts. It is not an alarm bell, but a whisper. Deep within your brain, in a tiny, masterful region called the suprachiasmatic nucleus, an internal clock, finely tuned over millions of years, begins a new cycle. This clock is the conductor of your circadian rhythm, the roughly 24-hour cadence that orchestrates nearly every process in your body. Even before your eyes open, this conductor raises a gentle baton. In response, a signal is sent to your adrenal glands, small triangular organs that sit like quiet caps atop your kidneys. They receive the message and begin, slowly and methodically, to release a hormone called cortisol. Now, cortisol often gets a reputation as a stress hormone, and in sudden high doses, it certainly can be. But in this first soft wave of the morning, it is something else entirely. It is a natural, gentle, and essential wake-up call. Think of it not as a shout, but as a warm hand on your shoulder, a gradual turning up of a dimmer switch. This cortisol doesn't shock you awake, it coaxes you. It begins to gently raise your blood pressure from its sleepy low, encouraging a little more blood flow to your muscles and brain. It signals your liver to start converting some of its stored fuel into ready-to-use sugar, or glucose, to begin feeding your awakening cells. At the same time, your core body temperature, which dipped to its lowest point in the deep night, begins a very slow, almost imperceptible climb. This rise in temperature is like warming the engine of a car on a cold morning. It prepares your metabolic systems to run more smoothly. This is the dawning within you. It is a physiological sunrise. You might feel it as the moment when sleep becomes lighter, when dreams fade, and a quiet awareness of the room, the bed, the weight of the blankets begins to seep in. You haven't moved yet. Your eyes may still be closed, but the internal tide is turning. The state of sleep, governed by the rest and restore branch of your nervous system, the parasympathetic nervous system, is beginning a graceful handover to the awake state, guided by its counterpart, the sympathetic nervous system. But this morning transition, when it happens naturally, is a blend, not a clash. It is a symphony, not a solo. Now let's talk about what this energy is that we're beginning to spend. We often speak of energy as a feeling energetic, feeling drained. But at its core, within the microscopic universe of your trillions of cells, energy is a very specific, tangible thing. It is a tiny, miraculous molecule called adenosine triphosphate, or ATP. Imagine ATP as the universal currency of your body. Every single process that requires power, a muscle fiber contracting, a neuron firing a signal, a kidney cell filtering your blood, a thought forming in your mind, pays for that action with ATP. It is the fundamental unit of biological work. And like any currency, it must be earned, spent, saved, and recycled. Your entire day is a story of ATP economics. So as you lie there in that state of gentle wakefulness, your cells are calling for their first transactions of the day. They need ATP to start their engines. Where does it come from? Your body, in its profound wisdom, never truly empties its wallet. Even during sleep, a baseline of ATP production continues to keep your heart beating and your lungs breathing. But for this new phase of activity, it taps into its most accessible checking account, glycogen. Glycogen is a substance your body creates by bundling together countless molecules of glucose, the simplest sugar, and a preferred fuel for many cells, especially your brain. Your liver stores a significant amount of glycogen, like a reserve tank meant to stabilize your blood sugar between meals. Your muscles store their own private glycogen stash for their own use. As cortisol delivers its morning signal, enzymes in your liver begin to carefully unbundle this glycogen, releasing individual glucose molecules into your bloodstream. This is your body's way of saying, here is the first fuel of the day. Let's start gently. This glucose travels through your rivers of blood, reaching out to every part of you. When it arrives at a cell, let's say a muscle cell in your arm, it can't just wander in. The cell membrane is a selective barrier. This is where another key player makes its entrance, insulin. Insulin, released by the pancreas, is like a gracious and skilled usher. It binds to receptors on the cell's surface, which signals the cell to open special gateways, allowing glucose to flow from the blood into the cell's interior. In the early morning, if you haven't eaten yet, insulin levels are modest and sensitive. They facilitate just enough glucose entry to meet the gentle demands of waking up. Inside the cell, the real magic begins. The glucose molecule is ushered through a series of elegant, step-by-step chemical transformations. This process is called cellular respiration, and it is the central story of how your body converts food and stored fuels into that universal currency, ATP. Let's follow one molecule of glucose on this journey, imagining it as a tiny vessel of potential energy entering a bustling cellular city. The first stage is called glycolysis, which means sugar splitting. It happens in the cell's main fluid, the cytoplasm. Here, through a sequence of 10 precisely orchestrated steps, the 6-carbon glucose molecule is carefully broken down into 2 smaller 3-carbon molecules called pyruvate. This process is ancient, used by nearly all life on Earth. It's efficient and quick, and it yields a small net gain of ATP, a quick initial payout of energy currency. But more importantly, it generates some electron carriers, which we can think of as high-energy tickets, or vouchers. These vouchers, called NADH, will be crucial for the much larger payoff later. This glycolysis stage doesn't require oxygen. It's an anaerobic process. It's the body's way of generating a little quick cash, even if the oxygen supply is limited. But your body, in its waking state, is awash in oxygen. You're breathing steadily, so the pyruvate molecules don't linger. They are transported into the mitochondria. Now, if the cell is a city, the mitochondria are its power plants. They are incredible, dynamic structures with their own double membrane and even their own tiny remnant of genetic material, a hint of a distant evolutionary past when they were independent organisms. They are the true engines of ATP production. Once inside the mitochondrial matrix, the inner chamber, each pyruvate molecule is gently stripped of a carbon atom, which becomes carbon dioxide, eventually breathed out, and combined with a helper molecule. This transforms it into a substance called acetyl-CoA. This is the key that opens the door to the next great stage, the Krebs cycle, also known as the citric acid cycle. The Krebs cycle is a beautiful closed loop of 8 sequential reactions. Think of it as an elaborate, constantly turning carnival wheel. Acetyl-CoA steps onto the wheel, and as it is passed from one reaction to the next, it is systematically disassembled. Its chemical bonds, which hold energy, are carefully unlocked. With each step, more carbon dioxide is released as a waste product, and, most importantly, a wealth of those high-energy electron vouchers are produced, more NADH, and another type called fatty H2. The original glucose molecule has now been completely broken apart. Its carbon skeletons have been exhaled, but its energy has not vanished. It has been transferred and captured in the form of these packed, energetic vouchers, NADH and FADH2. The Krebs cycle itself only directly produces a tiny amount of ATP. Its true genius is in harvesting these electrons. And now we come to the grand finale, the process that generates the overwhelming majority of your ATP, the electron transport chain and oxidative phosphorylation. This is where the vouchers are cashed in for the real wealth. Embedded in the inner membrane of the mitochondria is a series of 4 intricate protein complexes, together forming the electron transport chain. The NADH and FADH2 molecules, brimming with captured electrons, deliver them to the beginning of this chain. What follows is a breathtaking sequence of handoffs. The electrons are passed, like a bucket in a fire brigade, from one complex to the next. Each time they are handed down, a little bit of energy is released. This energy is used to pump protons, positively charged hydrogen ions, across the inner mitochondrial membrane from the matrix into the narrow space between the inner and outer membranes. This creates a concentration gradient. Imagine building up water behind a dam. A great potential energy builds up because the protons want to flow back to where they are fewer, back into the matrix. And they do flow back through a special molecular turbine called ATP synthase. As the protons rush down their gradient through this turbine, it spins. And this mechanical spinning motion provides the force needed to take a lower energy molecule, ADP, adenosine diphosphate, and a phosphate, and bind them together to create the high-energy ATP. It is a masterpiece of nanoscale engineering, the flow of protons driving the physical rotation of a machine that manufactures the energy currency of life. For every molecule of glucose that began this journey, this final process can yield about 30 or more molecules of ATP. The spent electrons, having given up all their usable energy, are finally combined with oxygen that you've breathed in and hydrogen ions to form a simple, harmless molecule, water. This is why we breathe oxygen, to be this final, graceful acceptor at the end of the electron transport chain, allowing this whole magnificent, efficient energy extraction process to flow continuously. This entire sequence, glycolysis, the Krebs cycle, oxidative phosphorylation, is happening right now in billions upon billions of your mitochondria in nearly every cell of your body. It is a quiet, humming, luminous cascade of chemistry, an internal starlight that powers your existence. And as you finally open your eyes, stretch your limbs, and rise from bed, this system is already humming along, converting the glucose from your liver's glycogen stores into the ATP that powers those first movements, the lifting of your head, the pushing back of the covers, the feeling of your feet on the floor. But the brain, the very organ perceiving these words, has its own particular energy needs. While it represents only about 2% of your body weight, it consumes roughly 20% of your body's energy at rest. It is a ravenous, exquisite consumer of fuel, and its primary, preferred fuel is glucose. The brain's cells, neurons, have a constant, unquenchable demand for ATP to maintain the electrical potentials across their membranes, to pump ions, and to release neurotransmitters. Unlike muscle cells, which can store some glycogen for a rainy day, the brain holds very little in reserve. It is utterly dependent on a steady, reliable supply of glucose from the bloodstream. This is one reason why that morning release of glucose from your liver glycogen is so vital. It feeds the waking brain, allowing cognition, perception, and consciousness to flicker brightly into being. If blood glucose drops too low, the brain is one of the first organs to sound the alarm, with symptoms of dizziness, confusion, and weakness. The body prioritizes the brain's fuel supply above almost all else. However, the brain is also adaptable. In times when glucose is scarce, such as during a longer fast or on a very low carbohydrate diet, the liver can produce an alternative fuel from fats called ketone bodies. Ketones can cross the blood-brain barrier and be used by neurons to generate ATP. This is a fascinating backup system, a testament to the body's resilience. But in the standard rhythm of a day that begins with breakfast, glucose is the star of the morning show. And so, you move into your morning. Perhaps you drink a glass of water, which hydrates every cell and facilitates all these chemical reactions we've been describing. Water is the solvent, the medium, the transport system. Without adequate hydration, the flow of everything, nutrients, hormones, electrons, becomes sluggish. Then you may have your first meal. This act of eating is not just about satisfying hunger. It is a major metabolic event, a refueling, and a signal. As food enters your mouth, your brain and gut begin a conversation. The taste, smell, and even the thought of food trigger the release of digestive juices. When food, particularly carbohydrates, reaches your stomach and then your small intestine, it is broken down into its basic components: sugars, amino acids, fatty acids. These are absorbed through the intestinal wall and enter your hepatic portal vein, heading straight for the liver for processing. The arrival of a flood of glucose from a meal is a pivotal moment. Your blood glucose level begins to rise. The pancreas, monitoring this rise with exquisite sensitivity, responds by secreting a more substantial wave of insulin. Remember, insulin is the usher. This larger wave acts like opening the doors wide. It instructs your liver to stop releasing its stored glucose, and instead to start storing the new incoming glucose as glycogen, refilling those reserves depleted overnight. It signals muscle and fat cells to eagerly take up glucose from the blood. In muscle cells, the glucose will be used for immediate energy or stored as muscle glycogen. In fat cells, or adipocytes, the story can be different. If the immediate energy needs are met and glycogen stores are full, insulin facilitates the conversion of excess glucose into fat for long-term storage. This is not a negative process. It is a prudent one. It is the body's way of saving for a future time when food might not be as plentiful. It is depositing energy into a long-term savings account. This insulin response is a beautiful, balancing act. Its goal is to efficiently clear glucose from the bloodstream, delivering it to the cells that need it and storing the rest, all while keeping blood sugar levels in a safe, narrow range. A healthy, responsive system does this smoothly, like a skilled conductor bringing the orchestra back to harmony after a crescendo. You may feel this shift physically. After a meal, particularly a larger one rich in carbohydrates, there is often a gentle sense of fullness, of warmth, and sometimes a slight lull in alertness. This is partly due to the energy being directed toward digestion. The parasympathetic rest and digest system becomes more active, and partly due to complex signals between your gut and brain. It's a natural, mild, and temporary redirecting of focus and resources inward. Meanwhile, the food you ate provides more than just glucose. Proteins are broken down into amino acids, which are used to build and repair tissues, make enzymes and hormones, and can also be converted into glucose if needed through a process called gluconeogenesis. Fats are broken down into fatty acids and glycerol. Fatty acids are an incredibly dense energy source, while some tissues, like the heart, actually prefer fatty acids as fuel. Their journey to become ATP is different from glucose's. They undergo a process called beta oxidation within the mitochondria, which chops the long fatty acid chains into multiple units of acetyl-CoA, that same key that enters the Krebs cycle. One molecule of a typical fat can generate vastly more acetyl-CoA, and thus ultimately more ATP, than a molecule of glucose. Fat is your body's long-term, high-yield energy reserve, but accessing it is a slower, more deliberate process than using glucose. In the hours right after a mixed meal, your body, well supplied with easy glucose, will use that as its primary fuel. The fat you consumed is more likely to be stored or used for specific functions, while your own stored body fat remains largely untouched, saved for later. As the morning progresses, your metabolism is now in full swing. Your metabolic rate, the total sum of all the energy-expending chemical reactions in your body, has risen from its sleeping baseline. This is due to the thermic effect of food, the energy cost of digesting and processing your meal, the energy cost of your physical activity, and the simple maintenance of being awake and alert. This is where the concept of movement comes in, not as strenuous exercise, but as gentle motion. A slow walk, stretching, light chores. These activities are not just about burning calories in a simplistic sense. They are metabolic tuning. They increase blood flow, delivering that oxygen and fuel to your muscles more efficiently. They stimulate your muscles to take up glucose from the blood without requiring as much insulin, improving what's called insulin sensitivity. They gently stress your mitochondria, encouraging them to become more robust and efficient. This kind of movement is like a soft, rhythmic drumbeat that helps the entire energy orchestra stay in time. And all through this morning, that master conductor, your circadian rhythm, is still at work. It influences not just when you wake, but the ebb and flow of your hormones, your body temperature, your digestion, and even your cognitive sharpness. There is a natural peak in alertness and core body temperature that occurs several hours after waking, typically in the late morning. This is your performance zone, when reaction times are fast, concentration is high, and your body is primed for focused activity. It's supported by that gentle, healthy wave of cortisol that peaked shortly after you got up and is now beginning a very slow, gradual decline. This rhythm is internal, but it is exquisitely sensitive to external cues, the most powerful of which is light. The bright, blue-rich light of morning sun shining on your eyes reinforces the signal to your suprachiasmatic nucleus that it is day, helping to set the timing and strength of your circadian rhythms firmly. It tells your body, this is the active phase. This is the time for spending energy, for engagement, for metabolism. So as the late morning sun streams through a window, or as you sit with a cup of tea, feeling that quiet hum of vitality, what you are experiencing is a complex, harmonious convergence. Your digestive system is completing its initial processing of breakfast. Your liver is managing the flow of fuels, storing what's extra, releasing what's needed. Your muscles and brain are burning glucose in their mitochondrial power plants, producing a steady stream of ATP to power your thoughts and movements. Your hormones, insulin, cortisol, and others, are dancing in a delicate balance, directing traffic. And underneath it all, your circadian rhythm provides the steady, reassuring tempo. You are in a state of energy equilibrium, where supply is meeting demand gracefully. You are spending from the checking account of readily available fuels. And thanks to your meal, you have even made a deposit back into it. But a rhythm, by its very nature, implies change. It has peaks and troughs, rises and falls. This state of morning equilibrium is not meant to last forever. The fuels are being consumed. The insulin surge from breakfast is receding. And as the sun climbs to its zenith outside, a subtle, internal shift begins to prepare for the next phase of the day's energy story. The gentle peak of morning alertness will, in its own time, soften into a different kind of state, one of integration, of sustenance, and perhaps a quiet, natural lull. That is a story for the next part of our journey. For now, if you're still following along, you can simply rest with this understanding of the magnificent, quiet dawn that happens inside you every single day. A dawn of chemistry, of rhythm, of light transformed into life, within the peaceful sanctuary of your own body. And so we find ourselves at that gentle peak, that plateau of late morning vitality. The systems are humming, the fuel is flowing, and there's a sense of smooth, efficient operation. But if we listen closely to the rhythms of the body, we begin to hear the first soft notes of a transition. No system designed for balance remains at its peak indefinitely. It flows like a tide toward a necessary and purposeful ebb. This is the beginning of the body's elegant shift from the spending spree of the morning into the more sustained, measured economy of the afternoon. It's a shift marked not by a crash, but by a quiet, natural recalibration. Let's consider the fuel situation. That first meal of the day, breakfast, has been processed. The surge of glucose that entered your bloodstream has been largely ushered into cells by insulin, used for immediate tasks or stored as glycogen. The insulin level in your blood, having done its job, begins to taper off to a lower background level. Your liver, having restocked some of its glycogen reserves from the meal, now switches back to a more neutral role, neither releasing large amounts of glucose nor storing huge quantities, but maintaining a steady, slow release to keep blood sugar stable. This is the metabolic calm after the meal's storm. You are running now on circulating fuels, glucose from that slow liver release, and free fatty acids drifting in from your last meal or from very light, ongoing fat breakdown. It is around this time, often a few hours after waking, that the healthy, rhythmic wave of cortisol we followed from its dawn release reaches its highest point in the blood. This peak is crucial. Cortisol, in this context, is a mobilizer and a focuser. It helps maintain that alert, awake state by supporting blood pressure and ensuring glucose remains available to the brain. It has anti-inflammatory effects, quietly damping down any unnecessary immune activity that could distract from the day's tasks. This natural peak is your body's way of giving you a final, gentle boost to tackle the core demands of your day: the focused work, the problem solving, the active engagement. It is not the jagged, anxiety-producing spike of a sudden shock, but the rounded, firm crest of a wave, built slowly and purposefully. Yet even at this peak, the seeds of the next phase are being sown, for the body understands the law of conservation. A high crest must be followed by a trough if the wave is to continue. And so, as late morning turns toward midday, a subtle, almost imperceptible tug begins. You might experience it as a soft focusing of attention inward, a slight quieting of the external drive. Physiologically, the body is starting to prepare for its next major event, the midday meal. Gastric juices may begin a slight increase in production. A gentle sensation of hunger might whisper, not as a desperate need, but as a polite reminder. A notification from your gut and brain that the checking account of readily available fuel is being drawn down and a deposit window is opening soon. Then comes lunch. This meal is another major metabolic event, but it often occurs in a different hormonal landscape than breakfast. You are not emerging from a 12-hour fast. Your glycogen stores are not empty. They are perhaps half full. Your body is already active and metabolically warm. The intake of food, particularly carbohydrates, will again raise blood glucose and trigger an insulin response. But if the meal is balanced and not excessively large, this response can be more moderate than the morning's. The body is not starting from a fasted baseline. It is refueling an engine that is already idling nicely. And here, we encounter one of the most universal, yet misunderstood, features of the daily energy rhythm, the postprandial dip. That feeling of drowsiness, of a gentle heaviness behind the eyes, of a desire to sit quietly for a while, about 30 minutes to an hour after eating. Far from being a sign of something wrong or a failure of willpower, this dip is a completely normal, neurologically orchestrated part of your body's energy management. What is happening? With the arrival of a meal, especially one containing protein and carbohydrates, the digestive system demands resources. Blood flow is directed toward the stomach and intestines to facilitate digestion and absorption. This diversion is guided by the parasympathetic nervous system, the rest and digest counterpart to the fight or flight sympathetic system. As the parasympathetic tone increases, it naturally dampens the sympathetic alertness signals. It's a literal shifting of priority and resources from the external muscles and sharp focus to the internal work of nourishment. Furthermore, the meal itself triggers complex signals. The breakdown of proteins releases amino acids, including one called tryptophan. Tryptophan is a precursor for serotonin, a neurotransmitter that promotes feelings of calm and well-being, and later for melatonin, the sleep hormone. While the direct sleep-inducing effect of turkey at Thanksgiving is often exaggerated, the principle is real. A meal can promote parasympathetic and neurochemical states conducive to relaxation. This dip, therefore, is not a bug in the system. It is a feature. It is the body's ancient wisdom suggesting a pause for digestion, a short period of integration. In many cultures, this is honored with a siesta. In our modern, non-stop world, we often fight through it with caffeine, but its presence is a testament to the natural rhythm, a gentle lull in the middle of the day's melody. As you navigate through this lull, perhaps with a slower pace or a few quiet moments, your body is making a profound and important fuel switch beneath the surface. The easy glucose from lunch is being handled, but the insulin response, coupled with the declining cortisol from its morning peak, creates a metabolic environment that increasingly favors the use of a different, more enduring fuel source, fat. This is where we delve into the beautiful, slow-burning process of fat metabolism, the body's long-term energy strategy. Recall that fat is stored in specialized cells called adipocytes, which make up your adipose tissue. This tissue is not an inert lump. It is a dynamic, hormonally active organ. When insulin levels are low, as they are between meals and in the afternoon, as the lunch insulin wave recedes, a different hormone called glucagon, also from the pancreas, becomes more prominent. Glucagon is insulin's counterpart. Its message is the opposite. It signals the body to release stored fuels. One of its key targets is the fat cell. It activates an enzyme called hormone-sensitive lipase. This enzyme's job is to break apart the large, stored fat molecule, called a triglyceride, which is essentially 3 fatty acid chains attached to a glycerol backbone. The process is called lipolysis, fat splitting. The fatty acids are then released from the fat cell into the bloodstream, where they bind to a transport protein called albumin. They are now free fatty acids, adrift in the circulatory sea, ready to be picked up by any cell in need of fuel. Many cells can use fatty acids, but the primary consumers are muscle cells, especially during lower intensity activity, and liver cells. The heart muscle, in fact, derives about 60 to 80% of its constant, relentless energy from fatty acids. It's a perfect, steady fuel for its endurance work. Now let's follow one of these liberated fatty acids into a muscle cell that's been lightly active all day, just maintaining posture and making small movements. The fatty acid is transported into the cell's cytoplasm, but to be burned for energy, it must enter the mitochondria, the power plant. However, the fatty acid molecule is too large to cross the inner mitochondrial membrane on its own. It needs a shuttle. This is where a remarkable molecule called carnitine comes in. An enzyme attaches the fatty acid to carnitine, creating a compound that can be ferried across the membrane by a special transport protein. Once inside the mitochondrial matrix, the carnitine is removed, and the fatty acid is ready for processing. This process is called beta oxidation. It is a cycle, a methodical, repetitive chopping machine. The long chain of the fatty acid, often 16 or 18 carbon atoms long, is fed into the cycle. With each turn of the beta oxidation cycle, a 2-carbon fragment is cleaved off. This 2-carbon fragment is none other than acetyl-CoA, that familiar key that opens the door to the Krebs cycle. And what happens to it? Just as with the acetyl-CoA from glucose, it enters the Krebs cycle, spins through its reactions, and generates loads of those high-energy electron carriers, NADH and FADH2. These then feed into the electron transport chain, spinning the ATP synthase turbine and producing a flood of ATP. Here's the profound difference. From one 16-carbon fatty acid molecule, beta oxidation yields 8 molecules of acetyl-CoA. Compare that to 1 molecule of glucose, which yields only 2. Since each acetyl-CoA can generate about 10 ATP via the subsequent processes, the total yield from one fat molecule is immense, over 100 molecules of ATP. Fat is an incredibly dense, efficient storage form of energy. Burning fat is like using seasoned hardwood in a stove. It burns slowly, steadily, and gives off lasting heat. Burning glucose is more like kindling, quick, bright, but fast to consume. So, in the afternoon, as the immediate sugars from lunch are settled and cortisol's alerting influence wanes, your metabolism subtly shifts its mix. It becomes a hybrid engine. It still uses some glucose from the liver's steady release, but it mixes in an increasing proportion of fatty acids liberated from your adipose tissue. This is a state of metabolic flexibility, the healthy ability to switch between fuel sources seamlessly. It is a sign of a resilient, well-tuned system. You are now drawing from your long-term savings account, spending it in a measured, sustainable way to power the sustained, lower-intensity activities of the afternoon. Thoughtful work, conversation, steady movement. This entire process is governed by a delicate hormonal symphony, far more complex than just insulin and glucagon. Let's meet some of the other conductors. Thyroid hormones, produced by the butterfly-shaped gland in your neck, are like the masters of the metabolic tempo. They don't cause immediate reactions. Instead, they set the baseline speed for nearly every cell in your body. They influence how quickly your heart beats, how deep you breathe, how efficiently your mitochondria produce ATP, and how sensitively you respond to other hormones like insulin They are the thermostat for your metabolic furnace. Optimal thyroid function ensures your energy production is neither sluggish nor frantic, but just right. A concept known as euthyroidism. Then there is growth hormone, secreted primarily during deep sleep, but also in smaller pulses during the day, especially in response to exercise or fasting. Growth hormone's role in energy is multifaceted. It promotes the breakdown of fats, lipolysis, and discourages the use of glucose, thus supporting that shift toward fat burning. It also stimulates protein synthesis and tissue repair, which are energy-requiring but building processes. It is a hormone of renewal, ensuring that some energy is invested back into maintenance and growth, not just spent on immediate tasks. And we cannot forget adrenaline and noradrenaline, epinephrine and norepinephrine, the swift messengers of the sympathetic nervous system. In sudden stress, they cause a rapid, dramatic mobilization of energy, breaking down glycogen in an instant, increasing heart rate, dilating airways. But in the gentle rhythm of a normal day, they play a subtler, tonic role. They help maintain a slight vascular tone, support focus, and provide little nudges of fat mobilization. They are the body's readiness system, kept at a low hum, allowing for a quick crescendo if needed, but mostly contributing to the background level of alertness. All these hormones interact, influence each other, and respond to the body's needs and the cues from the environment. Their balance determines a critical concept: energy partitioning. This is the decision your body makes, moment to moment, about what to do with the energy it has available. Should it burn it immediately for ATP? Should it store it as glycogen in the liver and muscles? Or should it convert it into fat for long-term storage? Insulin is the primary storage hormone. High insulin levels, particularly in the presence of excess fuel, signal store. Glucagon, cortisol, growth hormone, and adrenaline are the primary mobilization hormones. They signal release and use. The balance between these signals, shaped by what you eat, how you move, how you sleep, and your stress levels, ultimately shapes your body's energy landscape over time. As the afternoon wears on, another quiet but relentless process accumulates: the buildup of adenosine. Adenosine is a byproduct of ATP breakdown. Every time your cells spend an ATP molecule, it is broken into ADP and a phosphate, and in the process, a little adenosine is generated. Throughout the day, as trillions of ATP molecules are hydrolyzed for energy, adenosine slowly accumulates in the extracellular spaces of your brain. Adenosine binds to specific receptors on neurons, where it has an inhibitory, calming, sleep-promoting effect. It is a direct chemical expression of energy spent. The longer you are awake and mentally active, the more adenosine builds up, gradually increasing what is called your sleep pressure. This is one of the two primary drivers of sleep, the other being your circadian rhythm. That feeling of growing mental fatigue as the afternoon deepens into evening is in part the gentle, whispering voice of adenosine, telling your brain that the energy accounts are needing a reconciliation, a rest, a reset. Simultaneously, hydration plays an absolutely critical and often overlooked role in maintaining the smooth flow of this afternoon energy. Every single one of the processes we've described, hormone transport, electron shuffling in the mitochondria, the Krebs cycle reactions, nerve conduction, occurs in an aqueous medium. Water is the solvent of life. Even a mild state of dehydration, one you might not even feel as strong thirst, can make the blood slightly thicker, forcing the heart to work a bit harder. It can reduce the efficiency of enzymatic reactions. It can impair the delivery of nutrients and the removal of metabolic waste. The feeling of afternoon sluggishness is so often simply a need for water. A glass of water doesn't provide calories, but it facilitates every process that turns calories into usable energy. It is the ultimate metabolic lubricant. Now let's weave this all together into the experience of a typical mid to late afternoon. The post-lunch dip has passed. You are likely engaged in tasks, but the sharp, driven edge of the late morning may have softened. Your focus might be broader, more integrative. Physiologically, you are in a state of hybrid fuel use. Your liver is providing a steady, low-level stream of glucose, primarily for the brain and a few other glucose-dependent tissues. Your muscles and other organs are increasingly oxidizing fatty acids, providing a steady, slow-burning flame of energy. Your core body temperature, which peaked in the late morning, remains high, but stable. Cortisol is on a slow, steady decline from its peak. Insulin is low, assuming your last meal was a few hours ago. Growth hormone might have a small pulse if you've been active. Adenosine is accumulating in your brain, very slowly tilting the neurochemical balance toward rest. This is a time of endurance, of sustained output. It is not the time for peak sprint performance, but for marathon steadiness. Your body is beautifully configured for this. It is drawing intelligently from its reserves, conserving the quick-burn glycogen for potential bursts of need, while steadily metabolizing the abundant fat stores. This is also the time when the quality of your metabolic machinery, the health and number of your mitochondria, really shines. Mitochondrial health determines how efficiently you can produce ATP from either fuel source. Physical fitness, built through regular, gentle movement, increases both the number and efficiency of mitochondria in your muscle cells, making you a better, cleaner, more resilient energy burner. It's like upgrading from a sputtering, inefficient engine to a smooth, high-performance hybrid motor. But the rhythm moves forward. The sun outside begins its own arc toward the horizon. The angle of the light changes, losing its bright blue intensity and taking on the warmer, longer wavelengths of yellow and red. And this external change is detected. Even if you are indoors, some of this shifting light reaches your eyes. The specialized retinal cells that communicate with the suprachiasmatic nucleus, your master clock, are most sensitive to blue light. As blue light diminishes, the signal to the clock weakens. The clock, in turn, begins to send a new set of instructions. It is time to start the wind down. It is time to begin the gradual, graceful transition from the energy-spending day to the energy-restoring night. The first and most famous of these evening signals is the release of melatonin. The pineal gland, a tiny, pine cone-shaped structure deep in the brain, has been inactive all day, suppressed by the light signal. As darkness falls and light fades, the suprachiasmatic nucleus gives the pineal gland the go-ahead. It begins to synthesize and secrete melatonin into the bloodstream. Melatonin is not a sleeping pill. It is a hormonal signal of darkness. It is the body's way of broadcasting the message, night is coming. The conditions for sleep are approaching. It helps initiate the cascade of physiological changes that prepare you for rest. The drop in core body temperature, the relaxation of muscles, the quieting of alertness. Its release is soft and gradual, starting in the early evening and rising to a peak typically in the middle of the night. Alongside the rise of melatonin, another profound shift begins. The decline of your core body temperature. This is one of the most critical cues for sleep onset. Your temperature cycle is the opposite of your sleep-wake cycle. It peaks in the late afternoon/early evening and then begins a steady drop, reaching its lowest point in the early hours of the morning. This drop is not something that happens to you. It is an active process. Your body begins to redirect blood flow from the core to the extremities. Your hands and feet get slightly warmer as you release heat from your body's center. This process, called vasodilation, is like opening the windows of a warm house to let the cool night air in. It is essential for initiating and maintaining deep sleep. A common sign of good sleep hygiene is having warm hands and feet at bedtime. It indicates this heat dissipation process is underway. Hormonally, the evening is a time of great change. Cortisol, which has been declining since its morning peak, should be at very low levels in the evening. This is vital. High evening cortisol, often caused by chronic stress, late-day intense exercise, or bright artificial light exposure, is a direct antagonist to melatonin and the sleep process. It sends a conflicting signal of alertness and mobilization, disrupting the wind down. Meanwhile, as part of the reparative shift, there is a slow, pulsatile rise in growth hormone secretion, which will peak during deep sleep. Insulin sensitivity, which was higher in the morning, tends to decrease slightly in the evening. This is one reason why a large, carbohydrate-heavy meal late at night can be disruptive. It can cause a larger insulin spike and make the body work on digestion and storage when it should be focusing on repair and restoration. The nervous system makes its grand shift. The sympathetic tone that has supported your active day, increasing heart rate, keeping you alert, mobilizing energy, now gives way to the rising dominance of the parasympathetic nervous system. This is the rest and digest system. It slows your heart rate, stimulates digestion, which is why you might feel hungry for dinner, and promotes a state of calm, relaxation, and introspection. It is the physiological counterpart to putting on soft clothes, dimming the lights, and speaking in a quieter voice. This transition is not instant. It is a gradual settling, like the slow sinking of sediment in a still glass of water. And what of the energy systems during this wind down? The evening meal, dinner, is the last major refueling of the day. How this meal is composed and timed is incredibly influential. A moderate meal with protein, healthy fats, and complex carbohydrates provides sustained fuel for the early night, and the raw materials, amino acids, fatty acids, for the repair work to come. It should be satisfying, but not overwhelming, allowing digestion to be largely complete before sleep. As you finish dinner and move into the first hours of the evening, your body is still metabolizing, still producing ATP, but the goal is shifting. The focus is less on fueling outward activity and more on fueling internal maintenance and preparation for the deep restoration of sleep. the metabolism is beginning to idle down, like a town shutting off its streetlights for the night, one by one. So, as you sit in the evening, perhaps reading, talking softly, or simply resting, your internal world is undergoing this magnificent, coordinated transformation. Melatonin levels are rising, casting a hormonal shadow that signals for quiet. Your core temperature is beginning its purposeful descent. Your nervous system is switching its allegiance from doing to being. Hormones of storage are making way for hormones of repair. The energy systems are transitioning from the hybrid, fat-burning endurance mode of the afternoon toward a state primed for the profound restorative work of the night shift. The account books of the day's energy transactions are being prepared for closure, audit, and renewal. This wind down is not a passive shutting off. It is an active, vital phase of the rhythm. It is as important as the peak itself, for it creates the conditions for the miraculous events of the night. Trying to skip this phase, to go from high stimulation straight to bed, is like trying to land a plane without a descent. It's jarring, inefficient, and often unsuccessful. Honoring this evening transition, this gentle glide path into night, is perhaps one of the most powerful ways we can respect our body's natural energy story. It sets the stage for the deepest, most replenishing chapter of all, the long, quiet hours of nocturnal restoration, where energy is not spent, but profoundly saved, restored, and reinvested into the very fabric of our being. And so, we arrive at the threshold. The evening's gentle wind down has done its work. The melatonin tide is rising, your core temperature is on its steady descent, and the parasympathetic calm has settled over your nervous system like a soft blanket. Your eyes grow heavy, your thoughts begin to meander and loosen their logical chains, and you slip into the welcoming arms of sleep. But this is not an ending to our energy story. It is, in many ways, its most vital and active chapter. For the next several hours, while your conscious mind journeys through dreams and stillness, your body embarks on a profound, orchestrated campaign of restoration, repair, and energy replenishment. This is the nocturnal shift, where the economy of the day is audited, debts are paid, and reserves are rebuilt for the dawn to come. Sleep is not a uniform state of unconsciousness. It is a dynamic, architecturally complex process composed of multiple cycles, each with distinct purposes. We move through these cycles every night, typically in 90 to 120-minute intervals, repeating 4 to 6 times. Each cycle is a journey through different stages, classified broadly into non-rapid eye movement sleep, or NREM, and rapid eye movement sleep, or RM. The composition of these cycles changes as the night progresses, creating a shifting landscape of physiological activity. As you first drift off, you enter NREM stage 1. This is the lightest stage of sleep, a fleeting transitional zone lasting just a few minutes. Your brain waves, which were the fast, erratic beta waves of wakefulness, and the calm, rhythmic alpha waves of relaxation, begin to slow into theta waves. Your muscle activity decreases, and you might experience sudden, brief muscle contractions called hypnic jerks, a harmless last flicker of motor control as the system powers down. In terms of energy, this stage represents the initial handover. Conscious energy expenditure plummets. The metabolic rate begins its nightly drop, which can be as much as 10 to 15% below the resting waking rate. The body is settling into its repair budget. From here, you descend into NREM stage 2. This stage comprises the largest portion of an adult's sleep, about 45 to 55%. Your brain waves continue to slow, but are punctuated by two distinctive electrical phenomena: sleep spindles and K-complexes. Sleep spindles are brief bursts of faster brain activity. Think of them as rhythmic pulses of neural noise cancellation. They are believed to play a crucial role in sensory gating, blocking out external stimuli like sounds or touches, so your sleep isn't easily disturbed. They also are intimately involved in memory consolidation, particularly for procedural memory, how to do things, and motor learning. K-complexes are large, slow waves that seem to act as a bridge for the brain, suppressing cortical arousal in response to stimuli that aren't threatening, and perhaps aiding in sleep-based memory processing. During this stage, your heart rate slows further, and your body temperature continues to drop. Energy consumption is decreasing, creating a surplus that can be redirected toward maintenance. This is a period of stable, sustained physical rest. Then comes the deep, slow-wave sleep. NREM stage 3, often called deep sleep or delta sleep. This is the most physically restorative phase. Your brain waves become the slow, high-amplitude delta waves. It is exceedingly difficult to wake someone from this stage. If you are roused, you will likely feel groggy and disoriented, a state called sleep inertia. This is because your brain is engaged in its deepest housekeeping. During deep sleep, the pulsatile release of growth hormone from the pituitary gland reaches its peak. Growth hormone is the master craftsman of repair. It stimulates protein synthesis, the building of new tissues. It promotes the repair of microtears in muscles from the day's activities, the healing of wounds, and the regeneration of cells. It supports bone building and the health of your organs. All of this repair work is energetically expensive, but it is an investment, not an expenditure. It's like spending money to renovate and strengthen your house so it will serve you better and longer. But the energy restoration during deep sleep is far more direct than just fueling repair. This is when one of the most critical resets for your energy currency occurs: the replenishment of glycogen stores. Recall that glycogen, stored in your liver and muscles, is your body's most accessible checking account of glucose. Throughout the day, these stores are drawn upon, especially the liver's supply, which stabilizes blood sugar for the brain. During the deep, restorative waves of NREM stage 3, your body prioritizes refilling these accounts. Glucose is taken from the bloodstream and efficiently packed back into glycogen molecules in your liver and muscles. The brain, too, replenishes its limited glycogen stores within its glial cells. This process is absolutely vital. A night rich in deep sleep ensures you wake up with a full tank of readily available fuel. A night poor in deep sleep leaves these reserves partially depleted, meaning your body must scramble to mobilize other fuels, like fat or protein, more aggressively upon waking, which can contribute to feelings of grogginess, cravings for quick sugar, and metabolic stress. Simultaneously, deep sleep is a time of immune system bolstering. Cytokines, proteins that regulate immune response, are released and circulate. Some cytokines, like interleukin-1 and tumor necrosis factor, actually promote sleep, creating a feedback loop where sleep supports immunity and immune challenges promote sleep. This is why you feel so drowsy when you're fighting an infection. Your body is demanding the deep, restorative sleep it needs to mount an effective defense. The energy directed toward immune function during sleep is a strategic investment in long-term vitality, preventing larger energy drains from illness down the road. As the first cycle continues, after perhaps 70, 100 minutes of progressing through NREM stages 1, 2, and 3, you do not simply wake up. Instead, you ascend back through stage 2 and then enter a dramatically different state, REM sleep. The first REM period of the night is usually short, maybe 5-10 minutes. In REM sleep, your brain becomes wildly active. Your brain waves on an EEG look remarkably similar to those of an awake, alert person. A mix of fast, desynchronized beta and theta waves. Your eyes dart rapidly beneath your lids, hence the name. Your breathing becomes irregular, and your heart rate and blood pressure can fluctuate. Yet, in one of the most fascinating paradoxes of biology, your body is largely paralyzed. Major voluntary muscle groups are inhibited by powerful signals from the brainstem. This is called muscle atonia, and it's a protective mechanism to prevent you from physically acting out your dreams. REM sleep is the stage most associated with vivid dreaming, but its functions run much deeper. It is essential for cognitive and emotional restoration. During REM, the brain is processing, integrating, and making sense of the day's experiences. It's sorting through the vast amount of sensory data and memories, deciding what to store in long-term memory, what to discard, and what connections to form between new and old knowledge. This process is crucial for learning, creativity, and problem-solving. The emotional charge of memories is also processed during REM, particularly in a brain region called the amygdala, which is highly active. This helps to temper the raw emotional impact of stressful or traumatic events, integrating them into your life narrative in a healthier way. Think of REM as the mind's filing, sorting, and emotional reconciliation department. It's a different kind of energy work, neural energy, reorganizing the information architecture of yourself. And so, the night rolls on in these repeated cycles. But the architecture is not static. As you progress through the night, the proportion of each stage within each 90-minute cycle shifts beautifully. The first half of the night is dominated by deep, slow-wave NREM stage 3 sleep. This is when the bulk of physical restoration and glycogen replenishment happens. As the night continues, the duration of deep sleep in each cycle diminishes. In the second half of the night, REM sleep periods become progressively longer, sometimes lasting up to an hour in the final cycle before waking. The lighter NREM stage 2 continues to fill the spaces between. This pattern is a masterpiece of biological scheduling. It prioritizes physical repair and energy reservoir refilling early on, when sleep drive is strongest and the need is greatest after the day's wear and tear. Then, as the physical accounts are settled, it shifts resources toward the extended, complex, cognitive, and emotional processing of REM sleep, preparing your mind for the psychological demands of a new day. Running parallel to these neural cycles, and perhaps one of the most revolutionary discoveries in sleep science of the past decade is the activity of the glymphatic system. This is the brain's unique waste clearance system. Unlike the rest of the body, which uses the lymphatic system to drain interstitial fluid and waste, the brain is enclosed in the rigid skull and has a special barrier, the blood-brain barrier, that limits access. For years, how the brain cleaned itself was a mystery. We now know that during deep NREM sleep, the glial cells in the brain, the support cells for neurons, undergo a remarkable change. They actually shrink in size by about 60%, dramatically increasing the interstitial space between brain cells. This expansion allows cerebrospinal fluid, CSF, the clear fluid that bathes the brain and spinal cord, to rush through these newly widened channels at a greatly accelerated rate. It's like turning a trickling stream into a powerful flushing river. This pulsing wave of CSF literally washes through the brain tissue, collecting metabolic debris that has accumulated during the day's intense neuronal activity. One of the primary waste products it clears is beta amyloid, a sticky protein that can clump together and is a hallmark of Alzheimer's disease. It also clears tau proteins, alpha-synuclein, and other neurotoxic compounds. In essence, deep sleep powers the brain's nightly deep clean. This is not a metaphor. It is a physical, mechanical flushing process visualized in recent imaging studies. The implications are profound. The restorative power of sleep isn't just about feeling rested. It is about literally preventing the accumulation of toxic waste that can lead to neurodegenerative decline. When you shortchange deep sleep, you are shortchanging this essential custodial work, leaving the metabolic detritus of the day's thinking to linger and potentially cause long-term damage. The energy spent powering this glymphatic flush is perhaps the most crucial investment in your long-term cognitive energy reserves. Let's now widen our lens from the brain to the whole body's hormonal landscape during these nocturnal hours. We've touched on the peak of growth hormone, but other key hormones follow their own circadian rhythms, deeply influenced by sleep. Leptin and ghrelin, the hormones that regulate appetite, are tightly sleep-dependent. Leptin, secreted by fat cells, signals fullness to the brain. Its levels rise during sleep, helping to suppress hunger through the night. Ghrelin, produced in the stomach, stimulates appetite. Its levels typically decrease during the first half of sleep. When sleep is shortened or fragmented, this balance is disrupted. Leptin levels fall, and ghrelin levels rise. The result? You wake up hungrier, with a particular craving for energy-dense, high-carbohydrate foods. This is not a lack of willpower. It is a direct hormonal consequence of insufficient sleep, driving you to seek quick fuel to compensate for the perceived energy deficit and unreplenished glycogen stores. Cortisol, our old friend, follows its inverse rhythm. It should be at its lowest point in the early hours of the morning, around 2 to 4 a.m., allowing for uninterrupted deep sleep and the dominance of repair hormones. As dawn approaches, the suprachiasmatic nucleus will begin to trigger the slow, gentle rise of cortisol again, preparing the systems for wakefulness. Melatonin, of course, peaks in the middle of the night and then starts to decline as morning approaches. Insulin sensitivity, which may decrease slightly in the evening, is restored during sleep. A good night's sleep improves your body's ability to use insulin effectively the next day, helping to manage blood sugar. Poor sleep, conversely, can induce a state of insulin resistance, akin to a pre-diabetic state, forcing the pancreas to work harder. The cardiovascular system gets a crucial respite during sleep, particularly during deep NREM stages. Heart rate and blood pressure dip significantly, a phenomenon called nocturnal dipping. This gives the heart and blood vessels a period of relative rest, lowering the sheer mechanical stress on the arterial walls. This dipping is so important that non-dipping, or a failure of blood pressure to drop sufficiently at night, is a known risk factor for cardiovascular disease. Sleep is the heart's daily vacation. The respiratory system also changes pace. Breathing becomes slower and more regular during NREM sleep, especially deep sleep. During REM sleep, however, breathing can become irregular and shallow, as the diaphragm is the main working muscle, since other skeletal muscles are paralyzed. This is why sleep-disordered breathing like apnea is often most severe during REM. Even your digestive system takes a predictable pause. The normal, wave-like muscular contractions of the gut, peristalsis, slow down during the night. This is one reason why eating a large meal right before bed can lead to discomfort, acid reflux, or indigestion. The system is trying to wind down, not ramp up. The overnight fast between dinner and breakfast is not just a social custom. It aligns with the body's natural rhythm of digestive quiescence, allowing energy to be focused on restoration, not digestion. Now let us consider what happens when this exquisite, complex tapestry of nocturnal restoration is disrupted. The consequences ripple through the next day's energy story at every level. Sleep deprivation, whether total or chronic partial restriction, is a profound metabolic and energetic stressor. First, at the most basic level, you wake up with lower glycogen stores. The deep sleep needed to fully replenish them was cut short. So, from the moment your eyes open, your body's accessible checking account is underfunded. This triggers stronger hunger signals via the ghrelin-leptin disruption and a greater reliance on the stress system to mobilize alternative fuels. You may reach for coffee and a sugary pastry, causing a sharp insulin spike and subsequent crash, setting up a roller coaster energy pattern for the entire day. Second, your brain has not completed its glymphatic cleanup. Beta amyloid and other waste products linger. This contributes to the characteristic brain fog of poor sleep, slower reaction times, impaired judgment, difficulty concentrating, and memory lapses. Your cognitive energy is depleted because your mental machinery is, quite literally, gummed up. The prefrontal cortex, the brain region responsible for executive function, decision-making, and emotional regulation, is particularly vulnerable to sleep loss. This is why you might feel more irritable, impulsive, or emotionally fragile after a bad night. Third, your hormonal balance is askew. Elevated evening cortisol from stress or late stimulation can suppress melatonin and fragment sleep, reducing deep and REM stages. The disrupted cortisol rhythm then affects the next day's energy profile. The repair work mediated by growth hormone is truncated. The recalibration of insulin sensitivity is impaired. Fourth, your mitochondrial function can suffer. While the direct research is evolving, chronic sleep deprivation is associated with increased oxidative stress and inflammation, which can damage mitochondria. Inefficient mitochondria produce less ATP and more reactive waste products, creating a vicious cycle of low energy and cellular wear and tear. In essence, a night of poor sleep is like running a business where the night shift, the cleaning crew, the maintenance team, the accountants, and the inventory restockers failed to show up. You open for the next day with a dirty, malfunctioning store, empty shelves, and messy books. No amount of daytime hustle can fully compensate for that foundational failure of restoration. But let's return to the positive, to the beauty of the full, restorative night. As you cycle through your final, long REM period in the early morning hours, your brain is weaving together the narrative threads of your memories and emotions. Your body temperature has reached its nadir. Then, as the first faint hint of dawn approaches, even through closed eyelids, a signal is perceived. The master clock, the suprachiasmatic nucleus, begins its morning protocol. It signals the pineal gland to gradually shut off melatonin production. It triggers a very slow, preparatory increase in cortisol secretion from the adrenals. Your core body temperature, while still at its low point, begins its slow, inevitable climb back up. Your sleep cycles become lighter. You spend more time in stage 2 and REM, and less in deep stage 3. You might begin to stir, drift into a semi-lucid dream state, and then slide back into light sleep. This is the fringe of waking, a blending of internal restoration and the gathering readiness for a new day. The paralysis of REM sleep lifts. Your muscles regain their tone. Your heart rate begins a gentle ascent from its sleeping low. The energy systems are preparing to switch modes once more. The glycogen stores, now hopefully full, are ready for mobilization. The brain, freshly cleaned and organized, is priming its networks for conscious thought. And then you wake. Not with a start, but with a gentle surfacing. You open your eyes to the new light. The cycle is complete. The great rhythm has turned over. The energy that was spent, saved, and meticulously restored is now ready to be spent again in the new day's unique pattern of living. This entire nocturnal process, from the first light, NREM, to the deep cleanse of slow-wave sleep, to the vibrant neural theatrics of REM, is the foundation upon which every day of your life is built. It is the non-negotiable reset button. You cannot cheat it, outsmart it, or consistently borrow from it without paying a compound interest of fatigue, fog, and long-term health risk. But when you honor it, when you provide the conditions for it to unfold fully, a dark, quiet, cool room, a regular schedule, a mind unburdened by blue light and digital chatter close to bedtime, you are not just getting sleep. You are engaging in the most fundamental act of energy stewardship. You are allowing your body to conduct its nightly symphony of renewal, note by perfect note, cycle by cycle, until the gentle crescendo of dawn calls you back to the world, replenished, restored, and ready. The story of your daily energy is thus a closed loop, a circle with no true beginning or end. The quality of your waking hours determines the depth of your sleep's restorative work. And the quality of your sleep determines the resilience and vitality of your waking hours. They are two halves of a single, breathing whole. We have followed the energy from its gentle morning mobilization, through its midday expenditure and fuel switching, into its evening conservation, and finally into its deep, secretive, nocturnal restoration. We've seen it as glucose and fatty acids, as ATP and electron carriers, as hormones and neural signals, as rhythms and cycles. But this daily loop exists within a larger context. The consistency of these rhythms over weeks, months, and years shapes your long-term metabolic health, your cognitive vitality, and your resilience to stress. This is where our story must finally expand, to look at the lifestyle currents that can harmonize with or disrupt this beautiful, natural flow. How do the choices we make in food, movement, light, and mind shape the efficiency and balance of this endless energy dance? That is the final chapter of our quiet exploration, the guide to living in gentle alignment with the timeless rhythm within you. We have followed the energy from its gentle morning mobilization, through its midday expenditure and fuel switching, into its evening conservation, and finally into its deep, secretive, nocturnal restoration. We have seen it as glucose and fatty acids, as ATP and electron carriers, as hormones and neural signals, as rhythms and cycles. This daily loop is the fundamental pulse of your life. But this pulse does not beat in isolation. It is played upon, shaped, and tuned by the melodies of your lifestyle, the food you eat, the way you move, the light you see, and the thoughts you hold. These are the long rhythm influencers. Over weeks, months, and years, they can either harmonize with your body's innate wisdom, creating a resilient and vibrant energy flow, or they can disrupt the tempo, leading to a cacophony of fatigue, imbalance, and depletion. This final part of our journey is about understanding those influencers, and most importantly, learning the gentle art of listening to and cooperating with the profound rhythm within you. Let us begin with nourishment, the source of the raw materials for everything we've described. Food is more than calories. It is information and construction material. The pattern of eating, the when, is as influential as the content, the what. Different eating patterns create different metabolic contexts for your daily energy story. Consider the pattern of 3 balanced meals a day, with perhaps light snacks. This is a rhythm of regular deposits into the energy checking account. It provides a steady stream of glucose, amino acids, and fatty acids, aiming to maintain stable blood sugar and consistent energy. For many, this pattern works well, especially if the meals are composed of whole foods that digest slowly. The key here is the quality of the deposits. A breakfast of highly processed cereal and sugary juice causes a rapid flood of glucose, demanding a large insulin surge, often leading to a reactive crash a few hours later. A sharp, disruptive rhythm. A breakfast of eggs, avocado, and whole grain toast or oatmeal with nuts and berries provides a mix of macronutrients, protein, and fat, slow the digestion of carbohydrates, leading to a gentler, more prolonged rise in blood sugar and a more moderate insulin response. This supports a smoother, more sustained energy curve throughout the morning. Now consider the pattern of intermittent fasting, which has gained considerable attention. In its common form, it involves compressing your daily eating window, say, eating all meals within an 8-hour period, like between 12 p.m. and 8 p.m., and fasting for the remaining 16 hours. This pattern consciously extends the overnight fast. What does this do to our energy story? During the fasting window, insulin levels remain low. As we learned, Low insulin allows glucagon to rise, promoting the breakdown of glycogen, and more importantly, the liberation of fatty acids from adipose tissue for energy. It encourages the metabolic flexibility we spoke of, the ability to seamlessly switch from burning glucose to burning fat. For some, this leads to remarkably stable energy levels during the fasted period, free from the peaks and troughs of meal-driven glucose spikes. The body learns to efficiently access its abundant fat stores. It's important to note that this pattern is not inherently superior. It is simply a different rhythm. It works wonderfully for some, making them feel clear-headed and energized, while for others, particularly women, who can be more sensitive to signals of energy scarcity, it may disrupt hormonal balance and increase stress signals. The lesson is not which pattern is right, but that pattern itself matters. An erratic eating schedule, skipping meals randomly, eating large meals late at night, sends chaotic signals to your circadian clocks in the liver and gut, confusing the hormonal symphony and fragmenting your energy flow. Beyond pattern, the quality of the food you choose acts directly on the cellular machinery of energy production. Let's delve deeper into the mitochondria, those cellular power plants. Their health is paramount. They can be damaged by oxidative stress, an excess of reactive oxygen species, which are natural byproducts of ATP production, but can become destructive if not kept in check by antioxidants. Processed foods, especially those high in refined sugars and industrial seed oils, can promote inflammation and oxidative stress, essentially gunking up the mitochondrial machinery. Conversely, whole, nutrient-dense foods provide the essential cofactors that mitochondria need to function optimally. Think of the B vitamins, thiamine, B1, riboflavin, B2, niacin, B3, pantothenic acid, B5, and others. These are not energy themselves. They are coenzymes. They are the essential tools that the enzymes in glycolysis, the Krebs cycle, and the electron transport chain need to do their jobs. Without adequate B vitamins, these processes sputter. They are found in whole grains, legumes, nuts, seeds, eggs, and leafy greens. Magnesium is another superstar. It is involved in over 300 enzymatic reactions, including those that create ATP. It is a crucial part of the ATP molecule itself. ATP is often found as MgATP in the cell. Magnesium deficiency is surprisingly common and can manifest as fatigue, muscle cramps, and poor sleep. It is abundant in dark, leafy greens, nuts, seeds, and legumes. Antioxidants like vitamin C, vitamin E, and compounds like coenzyme Q10, which is actually part of the electron transport chain, help protect the delicate mitochondrial membranes from oxidative damage. Minerals like iron, a central component of the electron carriers in the transport chain, and zinc are critical. In short, eating a diverse diet rich in colorful vegetables, fruits, quality proteins, and healthy fats is not just about vitamins. It is about supplying the very parts list and maintenance crew for your energy production lines. A diet of processed, nutrient-poor food is like trying to run a high-performance engine on dirty fuel and without the proper oil. It will run, but inefficiently, and it will break down sooner. Now, let's move from nourishment to motion. Physical activity is the most powerful direct modulator of your metabolic and energy systems. But here, the philosophy of quiet vitality is crucial. We are not talking about punishing, exhaustive workouts that leave you drained. We are talking about movement as a modulator, a way to tune the system, to increase its capacity and efficiency. The most profound impact of regular, gentle to moderate movement is on mitochondrial biogenesis. This is the process by which your cells create new mitochondria. When you engage your muscles in activity, they consume more ATP. This sends a signal, mediated by a master regulator called PGC1 alpha, that says we need more energy production capacity. In response, the muscle cells activate genes that lead to the growth and division of existing mitochondria. Over time, with consistent movement, your muscle cells become populated with more and healthier mitochondria. This is like adding more power plants to a city. With more power plants, you can produce more energy, ATP, more easily, and you have reserve capacity. This is one of the key reasons why fitter people have more energy. They have a larger, more robust energy production infrastructure. Furthermore, movement dramatically improves insulin sensitivity. When your muscles contract, they can take up glucose from the bloodstream without needing insulin. It's like having a special VIP entrance. This immediate effect is enhanced over the long term. Regular movement makes the insulin receptors on your muscle cells more responsive. When insulin knocks, the door opens wider and faster. This means your body can clear glucose from your blood more efficiently after a meal with a smaller insulin release, preventing those sharp spikes and crashes. It also means your muscles are better fuel storerooms, readily refilling their glycogen stores. Improved insulin sensitivity is perhaps the single most important factor for maintaining stable, long-term energy and metabolic health. What kind of movement best supports this? The answer is consistency over intensity. A daily 30, 45-minute brisk walk is a metabolic miracle. It engages large muscle groups, raises your heart rate moderately, improves circulation, and stimulates mitochondrial biogenesis and insulin sensitivity without triggering a significant stress, cortisol, response. Strength training, even with light weights or body weight, is equally vital. Muscle tissue is metabolically active. It burns calories, even at rest. More importantly, it is your primary site for glucose disposal and glycogen storage. Preserving and building muscle mass as you age is a direct investment in your metabolic resilience. Yoga, Tai Chi, and gentle stretching contribute by reducing stress, improving flexibility and balance, and promoting parasympathetic tone. The goal is not to exhaust yourself, but to use your body regularly, to remind its systems of their purpose, to stimulate growth and efficiency in the energy economy. Think of movement as the gentle rhythm of a pump, keeping the fluids and fuels of your body circulating, clearing out stagnation, and encouraging renewal. This brings us to the most pervasive disruptor of the modern energy rhythm: chronic stress. We have spoken of cortisol's healthy, rhythmic role, the gentle morning wave, the supportive peak. But chronic psychological stress, the kind that lingers from unresolved worries, overwork, financial pressure, or relational strife, flattens this rhythm into a jagged, sustained plateau. The hypothalamic pituitary adrenal, HPA axis, the system that governs your stress response, becomes overactive. Cortisol levels remain elevated at times when they should be low, such as in the evening. This elevated cortisol directly antagonizes melatonin, disrupting the onset and architecture of sleep. It promotes the breakdown of muscle protein to make glucose, gluconeogenesis, which can be wasteful. It encourages the storage of fat, particularly visceral fat, around the organs, which is metabolically inflammatory. It can induce insulin resistance, making your cells deaf to insulin's knock. Over time, this state, sometimes called HPA axis dysfunction or adrenal fatigue, manifests as a peculiar, draining fatigue. You're tired but wired. You feel exhausted yet cannot sleep deeply. Your energy is brittle, easily shattered by minor demands. Therefore, managing the mind is not a luxury for energy. It is a necessity. Practices that activate the parasympathetic nervous system are direct antidotes to this chronic stress state. Deep, slow, diaphragmatic breathing is the most accessible and immediate tool. When you breathe deeply into your belly, you stimulate the vagus nerve, the main highway of the parasympathetic system. This sends a signal to your brain to lower the heart rate, decrease blood pressure, and shift away from fight or flight. Just 5 minutes of focused, deep breathing can change your physiological state. Mindfulness meditation, the practice of observing thoughts and sensations without judgment, has been shown to reduce the size and reactivity of the amygdala, the brain's fear center, and strengthen the prefrontal cortex, the rational, regulating center. This literally rewires your brain to be less reactive to stress, preserving your hormonal rhythm. Gentle movement in nature combines the benefits of exercise with the calming, restorative effects of natural scenery and fresh air. A practice the Japanese call Shinrin-yoku, or forest bathing. The point is to cultivate moments of quiet presence throughout your day. These are not breaks from productivity. They are essential maintenance sessions for your energy regulation systems. They are the pauses that allow the rhythm to reset. And then there is light, the master Zeitgeber, the primary time giver for your circadian rhythm. Your body's internal clock is remarkably accurate, but it is not perfect. It runs on a cycle that is slightly longer or shorter than 24 hours. To stay synchronized with the 24-hour solar day, it needs to be reset daily by external cues. The most powerful of these is the bright, blue wavelength light of the morning sun. When this light hits the specialized, intrinsically photosensitive retinal ganglion cells in your eyes, it sends a direct, powerful signal to the suprachiasmatic nucleus. It is morning. Start the day cycle. This signal suppresses melatonin, boosts cortisol appropriately, and sets the timing for all the downstream rhythms: body temperature, hormone release, hunger, and alertness. Getting bright light exposure, ideally within an hour of waking, is like winding the master clock of your body. It strengthens the amplitude of your circadian rhythm, leading to more robust daytime energy and deeper nighttime sleep. Conversely, exposure to bright, blue-rich light in the evening from smartphones, tablets, computers, and LED lights sends the same "it is morning" signal at the wrong time. It suppresses melatonin just as your body is trying to produce it, delaying sleep onset and fragmenting sleep architecture. It's like telling your clock it's 8 a.m. when it's actually 10 p.m. The disruption ripples through your entire energy cycle the next day. Managing light exposure is therefore a foundational energy practice. Seeking morning light and minimizing evening artificial light, using blue light blocking glasses, screen dimming apps, and warm, low wattage bulbs in the evening are simple acts with profound consequences for your daily rhythm. Weaving all these threads together, nourishment, movement, mind, and light, brings us to the heart of the matter, harmonizing your own unique flow. This is not about rigid rules, but about cultivating awareness and making gentle adjustments. It begins with listening. Your body is constantly communicating its energy state through signals, not just through fatigue. Hunger is a signal that your circulating fuel is running low and your glycogen stores are dipping. True physiological hunger builds gradually. Learning to distinguish it from emotional or habitual eating is key to syncing your intake with your actual needs. Fatigue is a signal, not a failure. That mid-afternoon lull is an invitation to slow down, not a problem to be solved with caffeine. Perhaps it means you need a glass of water, a 5-minute walk outside, or just a few moments of closing your eyes. Restlessness might be a signal that you've been sedentary too long, and your body needs movement to circulate energy and clear metabolic waste. Brain fog might signal dehydration, poor sleep, or nutrient needs. Honoring your chronotype is another aspect of listening. Are you a natural lark who wakes early and is most alert in the morning? Or an owl who comes alive in the evening? While society often favors larks, neither is wrong. Your chronotype is genetically influenced. Fighting against it, forcing an owl into an early morning high-intensity routine, creates constant circadian stress. Working with it by scheduling demanding tasks during your natural peak and gentle, creative, or social tasks during your lower energy periods allows you to flow with your innate rhythm, not against it. Practical, gentle strategies emerge from this philosophy of listening and cooperating. Morning anchor. Start your day with a few minutes of natural light exposure, a glass of water, and a few moments of calm intention. This sets a peaceful, rhythmic tone. Fuel for stability. Choose whole foods that provide a mix of protein, healthy fats, and fiber at each meal. This supports steady blood sugar, the bedrock of stable energy. Movement snacks. Weave small bouts of movement throughout your day. A walk after a meal. Some gentle stretches every hour if you sit, taking the stairs. This keeps the metabolic pump engaged without overwhelm. Digital sunset. Create a wind-down ritual an hour before bed. Dim the lights, put away screens, and engage in calming activities like reading, a physical book, gentle stretching, listening to calm music, or quiet conversation. This protects your melatonin rise and sleep quality. The pause practice. Build several pause points into your day. Before starting a new task, take 3 deep breaths. When you feel tension rising, pause and notice your body. These micro moments of parasympathetic activation are like hitting the reset button on your stress system. Your body's energy story is ultimately a story of resilience built through rhythm. Energy is not a finite stock you deplete. It is a renewable flow you cultivate. The fatigue you might feel is rarely about a lack of energy production in an absolute sense. It is more often about a mismanagement of energy, spending it in frantic, stressed bursts, failing to replenish it through deep rest, or clogging the pathways of its production with poor fuel and chronic inflammation. When you align your habits with your body's innate rhythms, you are not creating energy out of nothing. You are removing the obstacles to its natural, abundant flow. You are cleaning the windows so the sunlight can stream in. Consider the profound interconnection. A night of deep sleep, supported by evening light management and a calm mind, leads to full glycogen stores and a clear brain. This allows you to wake with natural alertness, seek morning light, and have a stable, nutritious breakfast without raging hunger. This fuels a morning of focused activity, supported by a healthy cortisol peak. A midday meal of whole foods prevents a drastic crash, and a short walk afterward aids digestion and resets focus. The afternoon is powered by a mix of fuels, supported by good metabolic flexibility from regular movement. A gentle evening wind down, a light dinner, and a digital sunset allow melatonin to rise and core temperature to drop, ushering in another night of profound restoration. Each phase supports the next. The circle is closed, strong, and self-reinforcing. You are a participant in this circle, not a passive passenger. The iron in your blood that carries oxygen to your mitochondria was forged in a dying star billions of years ago. The oxygen you breathe is a gift from ancient plants. The sunlight that sets your rhythm is a nuclear fusion reaction 93 million miles away. Your body is a nexus where these cosmic gifts are transformed through the most exquisite and intricate chemistry into the experience of being alive, into a thought, a feeling, a memory, a quiet moment of rest. The energy that animates you is ancient and universal. Your role is to be a good steward of this miraculous flow. So tonight, as you rest, know this. Your heart beats not out of effort, but out of rhythm. Your breath flows not because you will it, but because an ancient brainstem pacemaker remembers the tide. Your cells are taking this moment of stillness to repair, clean, and rebuild. Your mitochondria are humming. Your hormones are whispering their timed messages. Your brain is weaving the tapestry of your experience into memory. You are not separate from this process. You are this process, a quiet, luminous dance of matter and energy, temporarily organized into a form that can listen, learn, and love. If this calm exploration of your body's quiet wisdom has helped you unwind or given you a new appreciation for the gentle, powerful rhythms within, and if you'd like to support this channel in bringing more peaceful, educational stories to others who might need them, you can gently like this video and subscribe to Quiet Vitality. There is no need for loud calls to action, just a quiet invitation, if it feels right to you. By doing so, you help others find their way to this calm space, one quiet soul at a time. Thank you for sharing this journey into your own vitality. However you choose to support the channel, I am truly grateful you were here. I hope you carry this sense of gentle rhythm with you. I hope you sleep deeply and wake feeling restored. Good night.